Welcome to Penn Jen's Inkwell podcast. My name is Jen Waters. I hope you enjoy my stories. The Other Side of the Basement is inspired by an actual place, a literal place in my parents' house called The Other Side of the Basement. When I was a kid, my parents redid the basement as a family room. As you descended the basement stairs, the one side of the basement had a TV and computer, and the other side had a wood stove and the piano that I loved to play. But then there was the door to the other side of the basement where my dad had a tool bench and a toy train set that he liked to paint and build. There was also the furnace, which made weird noises, and the Culligan water system, which had been known to flood the entire carpeted basement beyond the door, and a freezer with my mom's canned goods, which occasionally melted and leaked. But then there were boxes and boxes of things that my mom didn't really want to organize or give away or throw out. And there were stacks of extra antique furniture that my mom liked to collect or keep just in case she wanted to change things up in the house. There was my mom's exercise bike and a closet with her extra winter clothes and fashions back to the 1960s. The stack of stuff on the other side of the basement was endless, especially for last-minute cleanup efforts when my parents had guests. You could get lost in there, and quite honestly, it would be the perfect place for an imaginary dragon to live. So, I made another Dr. Seuss-type rhyming poem, thinking it could be a picture book and animated film where the girl, Tabitha, makes friends with Gentleness the dragon, who happens to live on the other side of the basement. I like the name Tabitha because in the book of Acts, Peter raises Tabitha from the dead. Also, gentleness is one of the 9 fruits of the Spirit listed in the book of Galatians. The story is scored to original music that Eric Baines wrote called The Other Side of the Basement theme, thinking of The Nightmare Before Christmas, which makes it the perfect scary story for Halloween. Don't be afraid of the other side of the basement.
Tabitha Rainwater is my whole name. I'm age 12 if it matters to you all the same. I might as well live in Timbuktu. My town is called Sunshine even though I'm blue. 'Cause down the stairs and into the basement, my parents hide things that need replacement. At first glance, it's a normal room with a table, a couch, and a short wicker broom. But then a door lingers with its handles and hinges. When I look at its size, my little toe cringes. On the other side of the basement door is a dangerous place that you fear to explore. Tractors need parts, benches need screws, carpets need cleaning, so much to reuse. Trunks store old clothes, piles of chairs, bed frames are bent, guitars need repairs. It's supposed to store things like boxes and books. The last time I looked, I found a dragon with hooks. His toenails were so long that he could hang from the ceiling. As hard as I tried, this gave me a really bad feeling. I tried to tell Mama. I tried to tell Dad. No one would listen. It made my heart sad. One day its tail slid beneath the door. Mama wasn't watching the basement floor. I wondered if the monster needed a snack. I had to keep him kind or he might attack. So I ran up the stairs to the kitchen table. I grabbed a banana to keep him stable. I ran back to the basement and stood by the door. I hoped I would live another month more. I creaked open the door and peered into the dark. The room looked scary, mean, and stark. I stood there for a moment searching for the dragon. All I saw was my broken 3-wheeled wagon. Where are you, dragon? I brought a treat. I thought you might need something good to eat. Then I felt a thud, a scrape, and a smack. Every time he moved, the dragon got flack. He stepped from the corner and hung his head. Mounds of trash fell and his right wing bled. Before he could breathe wrath and fire, I gave him the fruit and tried not to perspire. Then I looked for a bandage to mend his wing. I used 10 newspapers and hoped it didn't sting. I wanted to ask him how he found my basement, especially the other side that felt like displacement. If he had a tunnel that led him back to his cave, maybe I could go with him if I was feeling brave. Then he stepped to the side and I saw a hole. It must have been his tunnel that he dug like a mole. I dove down the passage without a second thought. Who cared about the junk that my parents had bought? All of a sudden he followed my lead. I tried to walk slowly, but he had his own speed. When I came to the end of the long, cold channel, I wished I had brought my jacket with flannel. I poked my head into his dark, empty den. He had no mama or papa. I looked again. No wonder he liked the other side of the basement. He was probably waiting for some sort of placement. He needed a buddy to dig in the dirt. I imagined his feelings must have been hurt. It had been more than a day since he flew in the air, and somehow that seemed sort of unfair. So I jumped on his back and we took to the wind. I knew Mama and Daddy would soon be chagrined. I held on tight and tried not to look down. My family and home would now be renowned. We soared above the clouds and up to heaven. The minutes it took to get home were 7. I counted the seconds on my hands and my toes. What the dragon was thinking, nobody knows. He set foot in my yard and it caused a great quake. The front lawn was split. The whole house did shake. Mama opened the door and loudly she cried, "Why me? Oh my gosh, I feel like I lied. The dragon was hiding in the basement for years. I didn't tell you in case you shed tears. Your father disliked him and locked him away. He piled high broken things to keep him at bay." In a moment, the trash in the house all made sense. My daddy thought the mess would be used for defense. But really, we missed out on a 2-winged friend. Now I had a pet and the nightmare could end. Tomorrow I would call for a big garbage truck. The other side of the basement would be no more amuck. Gentleness is now my pet dragon's name. So no one can play a game of shame or blame. My dragon will have his own bedroom and nest. We'll be one happy family with monster-sized zest.
This has been Pen Jen's Inkwell Podcast. I wrote and performed all the original stories in the podcast. This podcast is produced by Eric Baines, who scored all the stories and poems in the series to original and public domain music. The podcast is associated with my blog of the same name, Pen Jen's Inkwell, which can be found on my website, jenwaters.com.